Hey witches, hope you're having a great evening. I'm going to do a video that is going to explain the difference between a book of mirrors and a book of shadows. Somebody asked me a question about a book of mirrors, so I thought it'd be a great way to go ahead and talk about the book of shadows as well. I've done that a couple of times in videos, but I figured I would go ahead and just do this video. So, what's a book of mirrors? So, when you're writing something down, you're creating magic with your energy and intent. Your pen is like a magical tool. So, you can add anything to your book of mirrors, anything that you want. Some ideas would be like dreams, like your dreams in life, and also your dreams while you're asleep. You might also journal about divination, like what you received during a divination session. That might be something you want to include in your book of shadows. That's your choice to choose what you put in which book. Also, you could journal about your emotions, especially your emotions during different moon phases, your goals, your intentions for that month. Anything about astral travel journeys and your daily actions, things that annoy you, self-expression, just write, affirmations, daily reflections, gratitude. So you can do any of those and anything else that you want, anything that you want. You can also do poetry, drawings, and anything else that your witchy heart desires. So, make sure that you do not put spells and stuff in your book of mirrors. That's for your book of shadows, and we're going to talk about that too. But your book of mirrors, it'll become a true reflection of your authentic self and your journey as a witch. So, it's for your eyes only. It's a magical tool. So you don't want anyone else reading it. If it's a coven mate, or your best friend that's also a witch, or somebody you're really, really intimate with that's also a practitioner, it's acceptable, but I don't let anybody read my book of shadows or my book of mirrors. Those are my private things. I treat them like diaries. My book of shadows, my current one, even has a lock on it. So, that's something you can consider when purchasing one. You might want to even get one with a lock on it so no one can see it or lock it up somewhere. So that way it's private for you and it doesn't lose any of its magic. But since it's a magical tool, you want to be sure to consecrate your book of mirrors. Okay, so it becomes a legitimate magical tool. You can also choose to leave it under the full moonlight to charge. I do that. I leave so much stuff under the full moonlight, guys. Everything, including my naked self sometimes. So I came up with a few prompts for your book of mirrors. So I'm just going to run through these. So the first one, what am I most thankful for today and why? What goals do I want to set for this lunar cycle? And you would start that usually at the dark moon. But you don't have to. It's up to you. It's your book, right? What annoys me the most and why does it annoy me? And how can I cope with the things that annoy me? What affirmations can I write down that will help me throughout the day? And I have a video on witchy affirmations, and I'll link it below if you haven't seen it yet. What do I love about myself? How can I be more compassionate towards others? How can I show appreciation for those I care about? What do my dreams mean to me? What messages did I receive during astral travel or divination? Now, the last one, like I said earlier, some people put that in their book of shadows. You can put it in either one. You might do some in one, some in the other. It doesn't matter. If it's something really significant, you might want to put that in your book of shadows. But if it's something, like a daily oracle card or something like that, you might want to just put that in your book of mirrors instead, but it is up to you, okay? But remember that they're two completely different books. Don't do them in the same book. make sure you have 2 different books. And it can look however you want it to look. It can look as witchy as you want or as non-witchy as you want. Doesn't matter. It's up to you. So next, the Book of Shadows. You probably already know what a Book of Shadows is by now, but just in case you're not sure, I will tell you. Your Book of Shadows is where you keep anything that pertains directly to your craft. You can keep spells, correspondences for crystals, herbs, and stones, rituals, information about deities that you work with, like the myths and legends that surround those deities, and also things that happen while you're working with those deities. I have one Book of Shadows that's completely dedicated to Hecate. Completely dedicated. I've shown it to you guys in a haul. Anything that goes in that book has to do with something Hecate-ish. Your moon phases. I have, in my very first Book of Shadows I ever did, I did a page for moon phases. I drew out all the moon phases and put the name of the moon phase. And I went back and added, when I did the video on waxing moon magic, I went back and added those things that I told you guys about in that video. I added that to that. So you can go back and add to original Books of Shadows. You want to keep them for life because like that, I wanted to go back and add it. So I did. And I always refer to my first one and my second one, because you learn so much during the first year, and 2 years is, you're cramming with information. You're cramming that information into your head, and you want to write it down so that you have a reference tool, and also because it just gives it magic. So you can also include information about meditations. Maybe you received a message during a meditation or something during astral travel. You can keep that in there. Anything about your path that you're on, or a path you want to follow. Maybe you're eclectic, maybe not. Maybe you're just straight Wiccan. Then you would want to put like the Wiccan Read in there. If you're not Wiccan, you might want to write something that's your own, like sort of code of conduct, if you will. You might want to include that in there. You can include symbols and what they mean. Sigils, any sigils that you make especially should go in there. I just made one today for safe travel, and I'm pretty proud of it, and it's in my Book of Shadows. You may want to put tarot card meanings in there, invocations, evocations that you use, how to cast a circle, your favorite witchy books. If you're in a coven, you want to put coven laws. That kind of goes when I was talking about the Wiccan Read, because maybe you are solitary and eclectic and you don't follow the Wiccan Read. So why would you put the Wiccan Read in your book? You wouldn't, right? You'd put your own little thing in there for you to follow. If you have a dedication ceremony, maybe you just dedicate, maybe you're solitary and you did a dedication ritual on your own. Put that in there, the date, the time, what you did. How you felt, all that in there. Important dates. That you celebrate things on that are witchy. Like I have all of Hecate's dates in my Hecate BOS, but you also want to include the dates of the Sabbats and the Esbats and what they're for and how to celebrate them. I have a page or two for each. You also want to include information on divination, like types. Like I have a page for the pendulum, I have a page for tarot, I have a page for scrying, I have a page for reading incense smoke. Just any of those things, and include that, because that's like your go-to resource for that stuff, so you don't have to look it up. You have it in there. You also want to put the charge of the goddess in there. That's important to put. You can put any other prayers that you think you might go, but you might use again. And it's not like a prayer, like you're praying to Jesus type prayers, but like little witchy prayers, sort of like spells. Any magical recipes that you use if you're a kitchen witch, or if you're not a kitchen witch, maybe tea recipes, bath ingredients, stuff that you use in your ritual baths, and anything else that you think is important. So it's completely up to you. So you may also choose to do it digitally. Some people do it digitally. I feel like it's not less magical. I feel like it's maybe less personal, but it's really easy to organize. If you do it that way, it's also easy to organize if you do it in a 3-ring binder, because you can move stuff around. I have never done this just because I love the way the witchy books of shadows look. I think they just look so cool, with a pentagram or the goddess symbol or a triqueta. Just anything that looks witchy, it draws me in. So I've never had one that doesn't have at least one witchy symbol on it. But, you could get a binder, and then inside you could slip a picture of something witchy on the inside where the plastic is, and make a pretty cool one. But please handwrite them. I think it's gives it more power. Plus, it helps you remember what you wrote down. But if you're a tech person, go ahead and type it. And plus, that way you can do talk to text, and you don't have to even type if you do it on your phone. But anyway, if you do a binder, it's good to have dividers, because it helps keep it super organized. A BOS really should include a title page. You just put your name and then write BOS, so Jane Doe's BOS, and then put the date. It's important to put the date, because then you know at least what year you were using that for, in case you have two that look the same, or you're like me and you have a dozen and you can't figure out what's where. It will help you. So you can also put a table of contents. That's optional, but it is helpful. But it gets confusing sometimes, because you want to. I'll give you a tip here instead of saying what can go wrong. What I do is I number. I do have a title page in mine, just because it helps me find what I need, but I don't pre-number the pages. I number them as I go. That way, when something takes up 3 pages, I can just write on the title page, pages 9 through 12 are about this, and it just makes it easier to look stuff up, but you don't have to have a table of contents. It's optional. It's a sacred tool of magic, so treat it accordingly. You need to make sure you consecrate it. You can also, of course, what I'm going to say, charge it under the full moon. I do that all the time. The one I'm working on now has probably been out there 3 times, but I do that. And then with Hecate's, I like to put it under the dark moon instead of the full moon. So just do what suits you, but you definitely need to consecrate it. And you just consecrate it like any other tool. You can consecrate it under incense smoke, or through incense smoke, over incense smoke, I should say, or herbs. You can also bury it. I like to bury mine in the backyard, wrapped in black silk, of course. Don't just put it in the dirt because it'll get all dirty, but I wrap it in black silk, and then I'll bury it for 3 days. And then that's what I do when I start a new one. And then I'll also consecrate it in an herbal blend, usually in the cauldron, and then put it through the smoke and just consecrate it formally. But it's up to you to decide how you're going to consecrate it, and it's up to you to decide which book you want to put what information in, because they're your magical tools. And it's okay to keep the books, kind of, some things are in both, like the divination stuff is really the one that's kind of tricky, because if you have a tarot reading and it's really significant, and you want to put that somewhere really special, you might want to put that in your BOS, but then you're pulling a daily oracle card, or you just ask a pendulum a couple of questions and you want to write it down, you might want to just put that in your Book of Mirrors. But just remember, there is power in writing, and it's also magical. Your pen is a magical tool, just as much as your book is, because you're creating an energy when you write. And people also use different languages. There's a couple of other kind of witchy languages that you can learn, like Elfish. You can learn how to do that. If you're so inclined. I'm not. I've got enough to learn, I'm still on this path. I don't need to learn a new language. But I think that's all that I have. I did say rune meanings. Did I say rune meanings? But rune meanings would be something that would go in your BOS. But I think I said everything. So, real quick, that's all. That's the difference. One is more like a journal. Your Book of Mirrors is more like a journal / diary. And your Book of Shadows is your magical place where you put everything that you're going to need to write a spell. So if you've got your herbal and crystal and stone correspondences in there, and your moon phase stuff, and your planetary days and planetary hours, also put that in your Book of Shadows. You can refer to that and just flip through and create a spell and then write the spell in there. But what I do, because you want to use ink, I will usually do a rough draft of a spell on notebook paper first before I put it in my BOS, because I cannot stand to have any scribble marks or anything like that in there. It just drives me crazy because I'm very OCD and anal about it. But just do a rough draft of things like that and then put it in there. But if you're doing your correspondences, just copy them from the internet and put them in there. Just makes it easy for you to have something to flip through. Plus, you can take it with you places. Like if you wanted to take it to a park, it'd be a lot easier than taking your phone and having to try to see the screen in the sunlight or in the moonlight. It's just easier to have the book. I guess the phone would be easier to use in the moonlight because it's hard to read outside in the dark. But bring a candle with you and you'll be able to read it. And that's also a tip. If it's something that you're going to be doing in a dark room, like a spell that you're going to do in a dark room just by candlelight, write it big enough so you can read it. Because otherwise you're going to be having to turn the light on and squinting and stuttering and having to start and stop, and you don't want that. So write in a large enough print if it's something that you're going to be doing in the dark. And that's talking about the Book of Shadows, not the Book of Mirrors. The Book of Mirrors shouldn't have anything in there like that. That's just your diary, sort of. But that's all. Just if you have trouble remembering which is which you probably won't. But if you do, just remember mirrors is a reflection. a reflection of yourself. And then the Book of Shadows, that's where your spells and stuff go. But that's all I have, witches, and I will come back soon with a video on full moon rituals. I'm still working on it. I'm trying to get, I think, 20 ideas, and I'm just about finished with those. So I will see you soon. Blessed be. Bye.